you looking to up your real estate investing game? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Sub2Deals Show with your host, Sub2 expert William Tingle.
Hey, Sub2ers, this is William Tingle of Sub2Deals.com. I'd like to welcome you to this episode of the Sub2Deals Show, where we talk about all things subject to and sometimes other stuff, real estate related. Got a great show for you today. We've got Lara Kimbrell here. She, I noticed Lara a few months ago in some of the Facebook groups. She was talking about her business and this and that. And she hasn't been an investor for very long, but man, she is just kicking it out there. She's, as I understand, got about 20 houses in her portfolio right now and a whole bunch of them in the pipeline. And so I just knew that she would be a great story for our listeners and wanted to bring her on. And she was gracious enough to say, sure, I'll do it. So she's here today. Hi, Laura. I'd like to welcome you to the Sub2Deals Show.
Hi, William. Thanks for having me on.
Well, man, I tell you, I thank you for being here. You've got a great story. I'll tell you, once I've gotten to know you and talked to you a couple of times, you've got a little bit different background and story than most investors I run into. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, thanks. Well, I live on a farm. I was raised on a farm in Central Texas, and I was like all small town kids. I got out of there as fast as I could. And I went to Texas A&M University. I've always been the tomboy that helped my dad on tractors and all of that. And so I earned my physics degree in 1997. I followed up my undergraduate with some post-grad research in nanotechnology. We were working in colloidal crystal formation for light-driven computers. Did that for a little while, and then I started teaching in public high schools. I taught advanced placement physics and astronomy for about 12 years. And then I took a little time off to be a full-time mom. I have 4 children. Right now they are 5, 8, 9, and 16. So I've been busy, raising kids, milking goats and cows and making cheese and butter and raising vegetables and, chickens and all of that kind of thing. So I did have an uncle in real estate. He was of my dad's 6 siblings. He is the one that really made it financially. And he had about 250 rent houses in Houston. And so I knew that was one way to get great wealth. And that was kind of what was intriguing to me about real estate.
I see. So with a background, anything from teaching physics to milking goats. Now that's a pretty wide range. I'll say that. But so your uncle is really what got you interested in real estate? That's what got you started?
Well, he's the one who made it clear to me that if you wanted to create wealth, generational wealth, that was a way to do it. I was actually the first person in my family to ever go to college. And my uncle's dad, they barely graduated from high school. They were just poor sharecropping, family from Central Texas. And I know that, when I was working in science, scientists do what they do because they love it, not because it pays well. And teachers are in that same situation. And, it was barely paying the bills, which is sad. Teachers are important. But, I knew that I wanted to do better financially. So that, I looked to real estate because I knew that was an avenue for it.
Right. Okay. So, and now you actually got started investing when? You've been investing for how long?
I've been investing for a little over a year. About 4 years ago, we were living on the Texas Gulf Coast, and I was just being a full-time mom. And my husband was working at the BP Galveston Bay refinery, and he had a disabling injury there, a neck injury. He's had a couple of surgeries on it. and he was unable to continue working. And, so I was toying with the idea of going back to teaching, but having 4 children and one salary, there's no way we could have made it on my teaching salary. So I had small babies at home. And so I just went hard after online marketing, internet marketing. I did really well with an MLM company with a product that I still use. But it was just taking all of my time. I was flying all over the country, and it still wasn't paying me enough to support the family. And so I was kind of really, I was just burning the candle at both ends. I was so busy with that. And then I started getting sick, and I was just feeling really, really bad physically and mentally. And I just wrote it off to stress, had really bad migraines and stuff. And so I found out that I had a large tumor in my thyroid. And so I had to stop all of the traveling and working on that online business, and had surgery there. And then about a week after my surgery, I had the most horrible headache of my life. They thought, maybe I had a blood clot as a post-surgical complication. So they brought me in and did a CT scan and found a large brain tumor. And part of my skull was eaten away by the tumor as well. So that was definitely not an expected thing. So within, that month, they were doing tests and trying to figure out what type it was and everything, and get me ready for surgery. And I was feeling really sick, and I couldn't do much other than stay in my bedroom where it was dark and quiet. And so I started listening to podcasts about real estate and watching YouTube videos. Of course, Max Maxwell was one of the big ones. You're looking to wholesale, because I didn't have money to get started. And so before and then after my brain surgery, I was listening to audiobooks and listening to podcasts and YouTube videos, and just kind of educating myself on the whole wholesaling process. And then as soon as after my surgery was successful, the tumor was benign, and I got a new titanium skull. So I'm even more hard-headed than I was.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And I just started driving for dollars as soon as I was released to do stuff. And I bought my first house in May of 2018.
Right. And you told me that you bought that house actually with seller financing.
I did. I really did not have any money to spend. And so it was in a small town, not too far from where I live. And he was asking $45,000 for it. He was a tired landlord. And I said, look, I'm looking to buy my first house. Can you finance it to me? And he said, yeah, he could, with $2,000 down. So I scraped together $2,000. I didn't do a thing to it because it was rent ready. And it took me about 6 weeks, but I found a buyer who paid $65,000 for it. He gave me $5,000 up front, and then I'm owner financing it to him at 10% interest. So
That's sweet.
Yeah, that was my first deal, and it kind of spoiled me to that, getting them for almost no money.
And now you found your first deal here. You bought this house. You asked him to finance it because you were broke, basically. Mm-hmm. How did you find this seller? I mean, was it was driving for dollars, or was it an ad or a sign in the yard?
It was driving for dollars, and he had a for sale by owner sign in his front yard.
So you just called the number, made contact, and then just basically asked for seller financing.
Yes, I did. I was like, you can only ask. The worst that can happen is they tell you no. But he was very motivated. He lived about an hour and a half away, and all he wanted to do was play golf. And in Texas, you have to mow your grass every week. or the city code compliance will be on you. And he was tired. He wouldn't hire it done. He was tired of driving 3 hours every week to mow the yard on a vacant house. So,
Oh, wow. But the takeaway from this is, there was no, I mean, the guy wasn't in foreclosure. There was no financial distress. He had other motivating factors. He was just tired of fooling around with it.
right.
And you said, well, I'd like it. Will you finance it? And he said, yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great, man. That's great. I mean, that is just such a perfect example of how just don't be afraid. Just ask. I mean, the worst they can say is no. And if you don't ask, well, the answer is already no.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of my mantra. I'll try anything once, and if it works, I'll do it twice.
That is fantastic. One thing in learning your story is that you kind of started out in a way like I did. You've done a couple of wholesales, you did a few rehabs, and if I understand correctly, what you found now is that you're getting your groove and getting the deed and wrapping the note. So is that about right?
That's exactly right. And I'm wrapping up my last, I have a fix and flip in Houston. It's a nice one in Bel Air. I can't wait to get it sold. I have one more project up near Dallas that is actually being renovated. It was 2 houses, and I already have a owner finance wrap buyer. He's renting from me until he finishes the rehab. And yeah, I have figured out that, I've kind of stumbled upon a good way of locating. You don't find sub-2 deals, you make them. But I found in my market, the kind of seller who is more likely to accept those kind of deals. And so I've got the process ironed out. I got a good attorney. I have a good insurance agent. And my 16-year-old and I are just stacking and racking them. As a matter of fact, he bought his first house, sub-2, no money down, in May. And we will close with the end buyer on Monday.
But the 16, when I saw that part of your story of the 16-year-old that just bought his first sub-2, and I said, man, we're going to be shaming some people big time. If somebody 16 can get out there and get it done, it's just all about taking the action though.
It is. It's how bad do you want it? And,
yeah.
He's thinking car. So this thing is it's going to cash flow about $550 a month for him.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful because I won't be paying his car insurance.
That's right. That is right. So tell us a little bit about, okay, you've made the switch here. Tell us a little bit about your business model, what you're working toward now. It seems like you've got some of the details ironed out. You've got your key players in place with your insurance agent, your attorney, and that sort of thing. So where are you heading toward right now? What is your business model going to look like going forward?
Well, right now we've got some systems in place, and we've worked really hard streamlining with the CRM and putting out some websites to get leads. And so we're going to continue working on that. My 16-year-old is going to be a senior next year. He wants to do the co-op work half a day. Instead of working for somebody, he's working on his own company because he has his LLC. And to build that, as I continue to help with that and to kind of supervise and lend assistance. And I am actually working in the multifamily. I'm working on getting started there because I don't want to be a landlord, but I want apartments that are large enough that I can get a property manager.
Right.
So that I'm looking to create that generational wealth.
Right.
And something that, with the sub-2s, those are great. Those are far more passive than rentals. But, we anticipate people refining out every 2 to 3 years. So we have to keep feeding that pipeline. And
Exactly.
That's good for the younger folks. But, I'm 45, and I want to have a little relaxation coming up in 10 years.
Okay. So you're doing some sub twos now, and you want to transition over into the big multi-unit stuff eventually.
Yes. And I still see keeping the sub twos going, because unless laws change or something, it's a very good model.
Hmm.
And, it's good. I have a son. My sister passed away unexpectedly last year, and she
Hmm.
had two teenage sons. And
Right.
so they are not as active as my son in it, but they are interested, and I'm trying to help them, create something that they can build, and build something to take care of them and their family.
Right. Okay. Well, man, I tell you, that's just terrific. I mean, I'm just so impressed with your 1 year in, and it sounds like you're doing 2 or 3 deals a month. You've got your 16-year-old in. I mean, he's already buying houses. I mean, imagine being 16 years old and having that kind of business that you can just jump into and never having to go through some of the stuff we did working for someone else, and being at their direction, when you can be off and when you can spend time with your family and that sort of thing. That's just great.
Yeah, he's not going to ever make a very good employee, I'm afraid. I think I've spoiled him.
Yeah, if he's already got his first cash flowing deal making $500 a month, yeah, it's going to be tough to get him to flip a burger anywhere.
Uh, yes.
That's great. Hey, we're going to take just a really quick break, and when we come back, Laura's going to tell us about her best sources for leads, some favorite tools that she uses in her business, and her criteria for evaluating a sub-2 deal and deciding if she even wants it or not. So you guys come back with us.
The Sub2Deals Show with your host, Sub2 expert William Tingle. We'll be right back. Have you ever had a seller give you a house? It's a pretty awesome experience. If a seller wanted to give you a house today, would you know what needed to be done to make the deal happen? Would you like to learn how? The Ultimate Sub2 Guidebook will show you exactly what you need to get those deeds and sell those houses with seller financing. Join the thousands of other investors across the country who learned how to get the deed with the Ultimate Sub2 Guidebook. Get the Ultimate Sub2 Guidebook today at Sub2Deals.com. Back to the show, the Sub2Deals Show, with your host, Sub2 expert William Tingle.
Okay, Sub-Tours, we're back today with Lara Kimbrell. She's talking to us about her business model and how she is investing. She's still a newbie, man, a year in the business, and she's out there kicking some serious tail, buying lots of houses and making lots of money. And we were actually talking about her best sources for leads. Now, you said you had a system that really produces a lot of leads for you. You guys are buying a lot of your houses this way. Would you share that with us?
Sure. And the first step, most people might laugh at, is Zillow, but Zillow is useful for us in targeting the areas that we want to look at. So I work mainly in the Dallas-Fort Worth and Houston, because I know these, I just know these cities. I lived in Houston for 18 years, and then I'm closer to Dallas. And so we use Zillow, and we turn on only the sold, the yellow dots. And so we zoom into the area that we want, and we identify those neighborhoods with lots of yellow dots. And so when I do that, I get those zip codes and those neighborhoods, and I have a realtor friend that works with me, and I ask for expired listings for the last 180 days from those areas, and she sends them to me, and we just get to work skip tracing and looking at that. Because what I found is, if there is a neighborhood where there's lots of sales going on, and then you have a house that has been on the market, 320 something days, there's something wrong.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm looking at pretty houses, so I look over the listings, and usually what I've found to be the something wrong is that they owe too much, and they're overpriced because they feel like they have to cover that realtor's commission and all the fees. And so after they're expired, I just reach out to them. I say, hey, are you still wanting to sell the house at 123 Main Street? I am not a realtor because realtors hit those expired listings. I say I'm a buyer and I'm interested. And so we talk it out. And I have gotten, just in the last week, I got 3 yeses from that. And they were all similar situations. They owed too much. They needed 90 to 95%. But I know that I can sell those things like hotcakes because it's a really great neighborhood in Dallas. So yeah, we get them started, and I hold them in trusts, and we take care of all the paperwork, and I sell them, I market them on Facebook Marketplace.
Right. So what I hear you say, and it's just a matter of getting those expireds, skip tracing, getting their number, picking up the phone and giving them a call and just making conversation. Now, there are a lot of people that are afraid to do that. Are you finding, and I try to explain this to people too, they still seem scared. Now, somebody with 1 year in here just getting started, and you said you got 3 deals doing this last week. What I'm hearing you say is just what I say. Just pick up the phone and call. They're just people. Just make a conversation with them. Say, hey, I see you've had this house that you tried to sell. It didn't sell. I want to buy it. I don't want to list it. And they'll start talking.
Yes, exactly. And, I always, my mindset is I'm going in trying to solve a problem. And one of the questions that I'll ask them is, why do you think your house didn't sell? And 9 times out of 10, they'll say it's because of the price. And then I'll say, well, tell me about that. Did you think about lowering the price? And then they reveal their pain point in that, yeah, we owed too much and we needed to cover the realtor's fees, so we just couldn't afford to. And, and then I just explained to him, look, I like houses like this. I can move them and I don't charge anything. I do all the work and you don't have to pay me a dime to do this. Is that something that you would like to explore? And it's kind of like a joke between my husband and I is I try to offer Chick-fil-A service.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah. I mean, everybody knows about Chick-fil-A. I mean, everybody wants every restaurant to be Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, exactly. And so I just, I do whatever I can. I listen to them rant if that's what it takes, and do whatever I can to help them and just make it a good experience for them. And that gives me source number 2 for leads is word of mouth.
Oh,
because
yeah.
they have such a good experience that, they may know somebody else in that situation. They'll say, well, you really need to call Lara. She was great. She did everything. We didn't have to worry.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Now, so you use an agent to get your expireds, but what would you say that your favorite tools are that you use to help you get this process done?
Definitely number 1 is PropStream. I like that because I can see the transaction history and oftentimes the mortgage information. Now, Texas is a non-disclosure state, so not every house has those, but every county, whenever you buy a house, sends out this little blue form that says, hey, tell us all about your purchase. And some people send those back in. I don't, because they just help the tax guy,
Right.
But that's how it gets into the system. So that helps me, and I can see the history. Well, they took out this large loan, and then 2 years ago, they took out a small second. So they're probably having some financial troubles, and they've got a first and a second. And so that helps me estimate also the unpaid balance. So if there's, if there is some equity, then I can set up and just say, hey, I can afford to pay you this much in your equity, and I can pay a high amount, but I never pay cash at closing. I just set up, I'm going to pay you equal payments, principal only payments of such and such a month.
Right. Yep. And the great thing about that too is you can go through with PropStream giving you the loan information, and not always in Texas, of course, but in states where it's all pretty open. You can look and if that's something you can rule out, if it's a very high interest rate loan or whatever.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So you don't have to waste your time. Great. Okay. So when you find these deals, we were just mentioning that, what are your criteria? Okay, let's say you've got an expired listing, you're looking it up on PropStream. What are you looking for in the process of saying, hey, this is a deal I would take, or no, that's, it's file 13?
Well, that's I'm in a very special market with Dallas because everybody knows that Dallas is just exploding as far as people moving in from California and all areas. And so in certain neighborhoods, my price will go up. I will look at expired listings that are up to $450,000 because you might be shocked, but there's a lot of people up there looking for houses and they have 50,000 to put down. They have 40,000, and it's because they've relocated to Texas, they've changed jobs, something, and they think a $500,000 house is nothing compared to California. So in those areas, that's my criteria, is kind of the cutoff, the top price.
Mm-hmm.
In Houston, I don't go nearly that high. I try to keep it 250 and under,
Right.
because that's something that I can find people with down payments for. As if I'm going to keep them myself, I look for houses that do not need work. I really don't want to fool with them. I have one in Fort Worth. I'm finishing, well, it's my son's, and we did paint and flooring in that house. But doing that, we were able to get a much better price for it. And so it's definitely worth, and we had the money to do it.
Right.
So we're doing that. But I look for good neighborhoods. I look for neighborhoods that are having lots of sales going on. In Houston, I have a map and I've ruled out several areas because of flooding. That's a huge problem down there from the hurricanes. So I just, I want problem-free houses in good neighborhoods that if, heaven forbid, they did default and I get them back, then I could resell them even 5-10 years down the road.
I'm telling you, Laura, you're singing my song here. No, low problem properties in excellent condition in neighborhoods where they move very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing those things, you don't have to have a ton of equity to be able. I mean, the financing, the arbitrage on the note. I mean, that's where you're going to make the money. I tell people all the time, I can buy houses in the $150,000, $200,000 range with $20,000 in equity and turn that into a $50,000 plus profit in 36 months.
Yeah.
Between the down payment, the cash flow, and the back end. I mean, it's just so simple to do.
It is. It's crazy. It's like, we talk about, it's like having a money printing machine. If you can arrange the deals and make everything work, then it's like you're printing your own money.
That's right. I mean, you can just decide, listen, I need to pick up an extra $50,000 over the next 36 months. Let me go get on the phone, spend a few hours, and bam, you're there.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Man, that's wonderful. Give us an example of a typical deal that you're working on, say right now, one of the deals that you just put under contract, from start to finish, how you found it, the negotiation process, what the sales price you expect, the equity spread, cash flow, total profit. Just lay it out for us.
Okay. One of them that I'm doing right now, and this came from expired listings, and I'm grabbing that sheet right now. He is a doctor. His house was on the market for quite some time, but he had only owned it for 2 years. And so when I reached out to him as an expired listing, he had a Houston phone number. And he said, yes, he had already bought a new house in Houston and he moved there for work. The house, let's see, was listed for $445,000 and the days on market were 325. And so it's no longer on the market. He's really just wringing his hands as to what to do. And so the ARV is 460, so it is a little bit below, but he owes 364,000 on the house. So, you know, there's about a $75,000 worth of equity, but when you look at percentages, that's not very much on a house that that size.
Right.
So we have we are doing the paperwork now. We've made an arrangement that I will take it sub-2 and no money out of pocket. So he's just walking away and happy not to have to make that mortgage payment anymore. The loan was at 3.5%, which is awesome. Yeah. I totally love that. So it gives me a lot of leeway in, I usually charge around 9.9% interest, but on some of these bigger homes, that just makes the payment outrageous and inaccessible. So I can come down and still make my nice cash flow and have a payment that is, you know, acceptable to a new buyer. So I expect to put it on the market for a sub-2, I mean, a wrap buyer, on a finance wrap buyer for $475. I expect to get about $40,000 down payment. And so that's $40,000 up front. The payment, it just depending on the buyer and what they're comfortable with, should cash flow between $500 and $750 a month.
Right.
And then, you know, until refi, and then we're looking at a spread of, let's see, 364, and that would be about 70,000 on the back end.
So this doctor, he's just totally walking away from this equity.
He is. He's not really worried about it. For him, he's busy. He's a professional, and you know, I talked about, you know, we looked at the 91%. I like to walk through different scenarios with the sellers, and I say, okay, if you had to lower this house to what I feel is a price it would move at, and then I figure 91% is what he would get after paying closing and realtor fees and taxes and all of that.
Right.
We look at that and we say, okay, here's what I can offer you, and here's, you know, how many payments are you going to make before it sells, and how much is your time worth? I can take this over right now. You don't have to worry about it one more minute, and you don't have to make any more payments.
Well, he's paying you for certainty.
He is. He is.
I mean, it's like the difference. It's like needing a gallon of milk, and instead of going and parking at Kroger and walking across the parking lot and going all the way back to the store and get it, you run in the convenience store.
Exactly. You know, and handling it with a smile and with, you know, whatever else that I can do to help make his life a little easier.
Right. And this is a guy, he's not in financial distress. He's got plenty of money, and that's one reason he can just walk away from it. I mean, he's already got his new house.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, there's no understanding some of these situations. You know, I have people question those things all the time. If I say, well, we picked up this house and we bought it for 50% of its value and took over payments, and then you get the question, why would anyone do that? Well, sometimes there's just no explanation. You know, it's just a decision they made. It was the best thing for them. So they said, yes. I made the offer. They said, yes, that's it.
Yeah. And sometimes they just want it done. They want somebody else to handle it so they can get on with their life. You know, it's, well, from teaching, we have Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and we've got these basic needs for shelter, for food, for these big problems. And when we're focused on those foundational problems, we can't do those higher level activities. And so taking care of a foundational problem for people frees them up to do higher and more important things, you know, reach what they want to do in their life.
Right. So you talked a little bit about this earlier, but if you could just go into a little bit further. Now, how did you learn to do what you do?
Well, part of it was dumb luck, with my first deal, and seeing how profitable it could be to get a good price on a house, and then instead of wholesaling it, keeping it, it made me greedy. I didn't want to give up all those deals just wholesaling them. Um, I watched YouTube videos from a lot of different sources. I also bought books and then just, studied the process.
Right.
I feel like we're in the age of information, and Google and YouTube are my best friends. I mean, I have done my own mechanicking on cars using Google and YouTube. I've done, I've made cheese, I've learned to take care of goats, and I've learned to buy houses.
Right. So you mean you didn't take any $35,000 boot camps
Oh
or
no,
any of
no,
that sort of thing?
no, I didn't have the money for that. And, and this is kind of a blanket statement, and I make it uh, with the knowledge that I don't know everyone out there, but some of these big programs, I've seen some of the people that go through it and they're still really clueless.
Yeah.
And so it's like a lot of busy work, but not a lot of content. And I'm all about action. I jump off the cliff and build the plane on the way down.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with you. I tell people every day, you know enough to get out there and buy a house. So go do
Mhm.
it.
Absolutely.
You don't be a perpetual student. Know enough to, have someone maybe that you can pick up the phone and ask them, to walk you through a scenario, but otherwise get out there and get something done. Call a FISBO and say, hey, would you sell or finance it for me?
Hmm.
You're talking about this deal you've got under contract, the doctor's house, and I'm thinking, man, you've come a long way from the first deal and $45,000 to the $450,000 house. So.
Yes, no fear.
Yeah. Well, listen, this is fantastic information. I love talking to people that they're still just getting started. I get out there every day and tell people, pick up the phone, ask for what you want. All they can do is say no. It's the worst that can happen. And those things that, well, yeah, you've been buying houses 20 years, but when you can talk to someone who is still new and is really out there really doing something, that's a real treat. And I know people can relate to that a lot more, and it's a lot more real for them to hear that. So if you could give new investors or people that have been wanting to get started and are just scared to pick up the phone or do something, if you could give them some advice as a new person still that's really having success, what would that be?
um, I see a lot of people who are just so paralyzed with fear when it comes to getting on the phone. And I imagine that person on the other end of the phone being a friend or a family member who's got a problem. And I talk to them that way. And I don't take it personal if they come across gruff at first. I just, I'm keep that sweet Southern thing going
Oh
on.
yeah.
And I just say, you know what, I'm here to try to help and offer solutions. And there's lots of ways to solve this problem. Let's look through it. And if you like the solution that I offer you, then I would love to help you do that. And, just approaching these people as, problem houses are that way because people have problems. And if you can help those people solve their problems, you'll get the house.
Right. That's exactly right. Having a good team, it sounds like you did a good job of putting your team together, your attorney, your insurance agent, you've got a realtor that helps you. So those are your key players. Do you have anyone else that you feel like is key to getting things done?
I do have a good friend of mine. She lives in Utah, and I call her my executive assistant, and she shuffles paperwork for me and has my checklists and makes sure that we have all of our I's dotted and T's crossed, because I'm that stereotypical nutty professor physicist, And I'm the visionary. I'm the big take action, but when it comes to like keeping all the things in line, I'm not so great at that. So
Right.
she is a critical part of my team as well. But
Right.
yeah, it took a while searching to find the attorney and to find the insurance agent. But that's another piece of advice is I would say is you want to find someone who does sub-2 all the time, not just a couple of times a year, because it is something that if you do things incorrectly can cause you problems, and you want it for your protection and for the seller and buyer's protection to do everything right.
How do you recommend that they go about finding these key people, attorneys, insurance agents, that sort of thing?
I went to my local investor groups and I just asked. I was like, finding other people who do sub-2s and asking who they used as far as attorneys and insurance agents. And then I called those attorneys and insurance agents and I just talked to them and interviewed them and asked them, what would they do in this situation? How would they recommend acquiring the property, and how would they recommend for disposition? In Texas, contract for deed, which is a very popular exit strategy for sub-2, is really a dangerous territory for us in Texas because of the more recent laws, and so I stay away from that.
Right.
And that's so I got advice there on the safest way to do that. We don't want to trigger that due on sale clause, and but we do want to actually, to sell the house. So just ask them, do your homework, make up a list of questions, and then talk to them and find out how many sub-2 deals they close a month, or how many sub-2 properties do they do, and do they have an intake form? That was one thing that the agent I chose had. She had an intake form that I could have my assistant fill out with all the information and just send it to her, and I don't have to worry about anything. Boom, the insurance is ready whenever we close with the new buyer.
Oh yeah, that's what I tell everybody to do as far as the insurance agent goes. When I got started, some teachers would tell you, just change the policy that's on the house already to, from a homeowner to a landlord policy. But what I found was I was working with different agents on every deal, and I had to teach every agent how to do it. And it just became such a grind. I went out and found my own agent, and he just did hundreds of policies for me after that.
Oh yeah, they'll be your best friend because you're their best customer.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I tell you, Laura, this has been great. I really love talking to people that are actually getting out there, taking some action, and just the fact that, you basically self-taught, how to do this. You just studied what was out there. I think that's fantastic.
Thank you so much. Well, it's been a pleasure getting to talk with you and getting to know you. And I really like surrounding myself with like-minded, really driven people. And so that's, I consider you one of those.
Oh, well, thanks. So everybody, Lara Kimbrell, she's in our Subject2 forum on Facebook. You can get there at sub2forum.com. I want to thank all you guys for listening today. The key here is just like we tell you every day, just like Lara has spent the last 45 minutes talking about, it's really just getting out there and taking action. If you've been on the groups for any period of time, if you've watched the videos, maybe you've taken a course or two, you know enough to get out there and do something. And until you actually take some action, you're just going to be thinking about doing real estate. You've got to get out there. You can't buy a house if you don't make an offer. So get out there and do that. You guys, until next time, thanks for listening. Get out there and buy some houses.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Sub2Deals Show with William Tingle. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and subscribe. And for more great content and to stay up to date, visit sub2deals.com and on Facebook at Sub2Deals. We'll catch you next time.